All right. Tap that. I'm thrilled to be here, and I thank everybody on a rainy morning who came out or who logged into Zoom. It is much appreciated by me. As Tim said, my name is Claire, and I write mysteries, primarily because I've always read them. They have always been my favorite genre. I love to just lose myself in a mystery novel. And so when I started writing fiction, that was the natural thing for me to write is mysteries. Today, I want to address a couple of points about mysteries that can easily be transferred to any other genre of novel, because obviously, no matter what you're writing, you want to keep the reader in suspense, you want to keep their attention throughout your whole book, and you want your pacing to be right. So I thought that I would start with that, first off, is pacing. And what I do is I use a 3-act structure. It is the most natural and typical of structure and pacing that happens in a novel, and is not necessarily something that the reader sees, but as a reader, you can tell when it's wrong. The novel just feels off. It doesn't feel like it is timed correctly. So what I do is I use a W. And Tim, maybe could you help me out and pass? I know. I've got Tim working for me. So I have one of these for every book. And as I'm writing, this is what I use. For mysteries, it tends to be fairly easy to pinpoint your spots. Yeah, Larry.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I always have boatloads of questions when people talk, and I'd like you to tell us how you'd like us to ask questions. Save them, hold them till the end, or during your talk.
I would save them unless it's a clarification point. Then please let me know. Pop anything like that up, and because I don't want to keep going if something needs to be clarified. So with a mystery, you have your inciting event. In my first book, the inciting event is a tourist showboat on the lake in the Ozarks that runs aground and crashes. Happens very first chapter of the book. That is the top of my W. My protagonist, Hank Worth, is the sheriff of the local county, and he has to figure out how to get all of these people off of the boat, how to run a rescue operation. So he figures all that out. That takes a couple chapters. You're introducing characters, since that was the first book in my series. I'm laying the character groundwork, the setting, and then right here, halfway down your first stroke of the W, is your point of no return. And for Hank, that is when he successfully rescues everybody off the boat and he finds a murder victim in one of the rooms. So boom, you're off and running. For me, and how I do it, now I do not outline. And that would be a whole nother talk on, plotting versus going by the seat of your pants. But what I do is I keep track of my word count, and I use this. And I was talking before the meeting, 150,000 words is what he's at for his novel. Mine have to be approximately 80. I'm contractually obligated to that. So 0 words, 20,000 words, another 20, 20, you're up to 80. So this is what keeps me on track. I know when I'm reaching 20,000 words, I need a pivotal plot point. Now, if you outline, you can do all this before. You will know what your end is, you know your middle, but the word count allows you to keep track of that, which is your pacing. 20,000 words into the first act. The middle act is always longer. So for my 80,000 word count, the middle is going to be about 40,000 words. And so that is what I'm keeping track of and what I'm working toward. So pivotal plot point, and then with a mystery especially, as you've got your last big turn, and then this is act 3, your final act, where this is the darkest moment, nothing's gonna go right, the world's gonna end, whatever it is for your work is here. And then, of course, they have to dig themselves out and save the world, right? For mysteries, this stretch is then where you include your twist, which is revealing who the killer is. If it's a romance, revealing who she's going to choose, or who she's going to end up with, that kind of thing. So it not exclusively for mysteries, but it allows you to keep your pacing. For me, this works. Somehow it clicked with me as a visual to use this. Some people prefer, you would do a straight, you do it as a straight line, do it as a graph, whatever works for how your brain thinks, because you can make and mold that to however you want. But you do need to stick with it, because that is instinctively how we digest a story, is that kind of pacing. On a rainy afternoon, you could do an exercise and take a movie that you've seen before. So where you're not super caught up in it, you know what's going to happen. And watch it with the time running on the bottom of the screen. And you will see they use the 3-act structure. By the minute count, you can, boom, halfway through, there they go. Huge plot point. 3/4 of the way through, boom, pivotal turn. And it really might hit home how natural that is of a thing. And it makes the book more readable for your readers. So as far as pacing goes, Larry, so I'm going to stop and ask if there are any questions on that specifically.
Pacing, I have 2 questions.
Yes.
It's not about pacing.
All right, well, hang on to them. Yes. There are standards, yes. And it's by the word. So for a traditional mystery, which is the category that mine fall under, and then police procedurals, the specific type, we crime writers love our little slices of that we fall into, is 80 to 90,000 words. If you're writing a thriller, say Jack Reacher, if anyone's familiar with those books, 100,000 words. You get a little bit more room on a true thriller. No genre goes over that. Oh, yeah.
Now, you just said something that I want to clarify.
Yes.
You said you get a little bit more room in those. The implication there is that you've got more to write than you have room for with your 80,000 to 90,000 words.
Sometimes.
And I'm just curious if you've done 3 of them now. So I have a prescriptive nonfiction business book. 50,000 words has been kind of the generally accepted universal standard.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious if you found 80,000 words to be constraining, or if you ended up getting repetitive or superfluous or outside your storyline with that 80,000.
That's a very good question. So Larry asked if I found my 80,000 word count restriction to be limiting, or on the opposite, to be something that I had to fill, create fill for.
You said you get more room with the other one, which implied you want more.
There was one book where I would have liked more room. The way that I do it with my W helps that out, because I am so strict with where I meet my word counts, that this is 20,000 words. So that, and I'm making it up as I go, so I'm not trying to scrunch it in. I don't know if that.
Let me come back with another question. You're writing fiction.
Uh-huh.
And what you're talking about is a very prescriptive process.
Mm-hmm.
It's a recipe. It's a formula. It's engineering structural diagram you're building for. Do you find that to be conducive to your writing or restrictive to your writing? Because most writers I've spoken to, particularly fiction writers, seem to get frustrated when they're forced into prescriptive, structured packaging. And you're doing exactly that. So I'm just curious, does that
No, this is a very good question.
Having more fun, or does that make you feel like you're constrained, or it's just odd?
So I'm gonna repeat for Zoom here. So the question is that, because this is like a structure or a scaffolding that I'm describing, do I get frustrated with that as a fiction writer, kind of being locked in a box?
Or does it help me?
Or does it help me? I don't get frustrated. I feel that I am still able to create my world. Part of that might be that I come from a journalism background. I was a newspaper reporter, where you don't get a say-so. You get so many words. Anything else gets sliced off at the bottom. They don't care. And now I get to do what I want. And I did choose the route of traditional publishing. So that right there's an implied contract between me and them that I'm accepting the industry standard for the word count, for the length. I could write a 200,000 word mystery. It wouldn't sell. That's not, people don't buy that. And there are exceptions. Tom Clancy can do what he wants. Lee Child can do what he wants. Although I know that he hits 100,001 words and his book is done. And he heads out for a smoke break. So, you know, certainly there are people who have reached the point in their careers where they can dictate all the terms. That is very rare. And that's just, those are the accepted. I actually, before I just started writing book 6, and I have finished a thriller. So that is about 99,000 words, because that's more of the accepted standard, that when I give it to my editor, that will be more saleable than an 80,000 word thriller would be. Again, different genres. If you're writing sci-fi or if you're writing fantasy, you get a lot more words because you have to do your world building. You get 120 to 150,000 words. So it very much depends on the genre. Literary fiction, I don't know as much about. I think that swings much more widely as to what they'll take as far as word count. Yeah.
I find if I really, really love somebody's first 2 novels, and then they write a third and a fourth that start to get longer, then you need to go back and edit that. So sometimes a constraint is a very good thing.
The observation was, you know, if you read several books of a writer's, the later books tend to get longer and longer, and perhaps should have been not that long. And that is very true. Some really, you know, some of Clive Cussler's later works, oh my gosh, get on with it. You know, that you do need the tightening down. And that, you know, on the flip side, that's a very attractive thing about self-publishing, is that you are not as limited in those constraints. And if you decide that you don't want that constraint on the word count, I would still beg you to use it for your pacing. If your book absolutely has to be 150,000 words, still go through and mark it on that 3-act structure, because you still need that regardless of how many words it is. Yeah, Ken.
I find that level of detail is very important for clarity. Another thing that helps is chapterization, where you can, if you're going to develop a character, you can develop that character in one chapter, and then if you're going to change the site and what's going on with another character, you can put that in a separate chapter, but you eventually got to bring them all together, how they interact.
Yes. So Ken was saying that chapterization, he finds this helpful, where, you know, you can introduce someone in one chapter and go to a different character and go in depth with them on the next chapter. And then, as he points out, one of the key things is bringing them all together at the end. And so actually, that is a great segue. I'm going to jump down a couple and talk about suspense, because that is one of the great ways to keep people in suspense, is to have those balls in the air, so to speak, all your different characters, and the question, how are they going to come together? Who is going to do what? Where is this going to happen? Is it going to happen in the spooky old country house, or is it going to happen on the streets of the big city? Or, you know, all of those questions that you have sowed throughout your book. And again, this can be, you know, if you're writing in a different genre, it can be a romance, it can be a sci-fi. Certainly, you've got all these different characters and these moving parts, and that, you know, is the great thing about fiction, is how is this author going to stick the landing, basically, right? How are you gonna do this? And so, as Ken was saying, creating these in-depth characters and putting them in motion, seeing how they interact, that is one of the key ways to create suspense that's going to last you throughout an entire novel. Another way to maintain suspense is the seeding of clues. And this obviously is a little bit more mystery specific to talk about, but clues are tricky because you can't have them be too obvious. And the ideal thing is that the reader doesn't even know it's a clue until they're done with the book. And then you get the, oh, he did say that back in chapter 10, didn't he? And I went right over it because it was so well folded in, this comment from, the delivery driver, that I never would have guessed, but it was right there. Tim, did you have a?
Yeah, but I'll save it till the end.
Oh, okay. So that's, for me, one of the greatest pleasures as a reader is to be like, you got me. If you're reading a mystery, to be able to say that, like, oh, they got me. I never would have guessed that. As a writer, one of the things that I find really helpful is I will leave a spot. In the book I'm writing now, book 6 in my series, I have a character who has gone into a home office and is searching it. She's looking for something. She's going through, and I've described the office, and it's a little dusty and careworn, and it's got old traditional filing cabinets, computer, and so I've set my, just in like 2 paragraphs, because it's not a super important setting, but I kind of wanted the vibe. And she's searching, and she finds it. I don't know what it is, but when I figure it out, now I have a place to put it, because I know something needs to be there for where I am in my word count. And I have the scene to put it in, so I'm not later on going to be forced to shoehorn a new scene in. But I've created that hole. And again, I'm a pantser. I'm seat of my pants. I don't outline. If you've outlined, then you would know what clue goes there, because you've got it all laid out. But if you don't, you've got that hole that you can, if I decide that it's illegal drugs that she found, or if it's money, or if it's, whatever it is, I don't know yet, but I've got the spot to put it. And so that is one technique that for me really works well. And also, if you are a plotter, is switching things out, because you want to go back through. Okay, well, when I was writing it, it was this clue, and that's not going to work, so you change it. Clues are very flexible. It's very important in the editing process as far as clues go, to make sure that they are the right level for what you need. Is it a red herring? Is it critical to the solution of the mystery? Is it too obvious? Do I need to dial it back a little bit? Do I need to change it around a little bit? The other big thing as far as clues go is your beta readers, is those blessed folks who agree to sit down with your book when you're done with it, before you put it out in the world, and give you honest feedback. And I would say for mysteries, this is even more important, because if they come back and tell you, I knew who did it on page 75, you've got a lot more work to do. And sometimes, you can't see that. So you really do need those early readers to give you that feedback. Yeah, Larry and then Tim.
So I'm really glad you brought this up. My genre is so radically different than yours that I don't know if this is relevant. We got a lot of wonderful insights from speakers over the years, beta readers, and how to get them, how to manage them, and the whole process. I've really struggled to get my beta readers to give me the feedback I needed, even though I went to great lengths to make it easy and clear. What you need to know is, do you know who did it before the end of the book? But I'm sure there's other aspects that you want. Can you talk a little bit about your success with beta readers and what you found to be most successful in presenting your material to them to get what you wanted?
Be mean to me.
You tell them that.
I tell them that. I tell them that.
And that worked.
Yes. If anything confuses you, I want to know if you're confused, whether it's about a mystery point or whether it's, I didn't know who was talking here. It was confusing. I couldn't tell who was talking to who. So I give them a couple bullet points. But mostly that's it, be mean to me. Are there parts that are stupid? Are there parts that are confusing? Are there parts, where you've figured it out? But that is the key, that, be mean. I promise I'm still buying you lunch when you give it back to me. There will never be hard feelings, and I'm always so appreciative, but be mean. I want to know all the warts and all.
Yeah,
So
I told everybody, look, I'm not looking for praise, please. And that's most of what I got. But I didn't say, please be mean to me. So thank you.
Okay, Tim?
Well, my question was really about how often you go back at the end after you go back to, even before you can send it out to beta readers. How often you go back and just rewrite clues and edit?
I usually, about halfway through, I will stop and I will go back and I will read the whole thing that I've done up to that point. Otherwise, I do not. I keep a pretty detailed spreadsheet, scene by scene. So I can reference that. I don't have to scroll back up to say, okay, how many scenes back did this happen? I've got my spreadsheet list that has the scene, whose point of view it is, the word count of that scene, and then, the short little description, he finds second body, 562 words. And for me, that's a good quick reference, because I'm not scrolling back up, because when you start scrolling back up, then you get in this time suck where you're tinkering with what you've already written and you're not moving forward. Oh, yes. So, whose point of view it is, this is are my categories, and certainly, it's a spreadsheet. You could add as many columns as you need to. So, point of view, word count, a short description of the scene, just 3 or 4 words so that you know that. For my thriller, I had a column on the day because it takes place in a very compressed time period. And so I had to keep track of the Tuesday, and then when Wednesday started, and then the last day was the last half of the book. And so then I was at times. So because I could look immediately at that and say, okay, it's already been 2 o'clock, so the scene I'm writing has to be after that, instead of scrolling back up and doing word find and that kind of thing. So I don't, to go back to your question, Tim, I don't do that a lot. I will if I reach a point and say make a decision that renders something moot back earlier in my book, that I will flag and I'll go back and try to fix. If it's a thing like that, but otherwise I don't until I'm done. Yeah.
I understand you're a pantser, not a plotter, but you're writing a mystery. My question is, do you know when you start your book who the murderer is?
No.
Okay, great, thank you.
There have been a couple where I get to this point and I don't know who the murderer is.
Okay. Yeah.
So, and for me, I love that. For me, it's this is, now I get to decide, or now they get to tell me who it is.
In the book I wrote, the girl is trying to find out what happened to her mother through the whole book.
Mhm.
And it isn't until the bottom of the dark moment where I've even decided for myself if the mother is dead, alive, left on her own, was dragged away, or what.
Then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. And again, there's no right way or wrong way, but no, there have definitely. And then there was one where I knew the whole arc pretty much the whole way through. So it does then even vary for me individually. It'll vary it up. Yeah, Bernard.
Yeah. Well, first comment. I find it's unusual that you don't know who the killer is, although you're using a strict contractual formula to write the book. You don't know who the killer is until the end. But that's okay. Yeah, that's you're a pantser. But the question is, again, relating to the fact you're working with a formula. How many clues, and also as a counterpoint, red herrings, do you put in your book, and how do you space them through the mystery?
Oh, that's a very good question. So Bernard asked, how do I space clues and red herrings throughout the book? Partially based on word count, and I hate to keep coming back to that because I don't want to sound formulaic. That, because I am a pantser, that is my outline, is just my word count. I don't consider it, a plotter might consider that being locked in a box. But then they're able to do an outline, which literally I've sat down and I've tried and I can't do it. So, so as far as clues, it kind of depends on the action. You might end up with a scene that lends itself to multiple clues, or, one that ends up being a red herring. Sometimes you certainly wouldn't know, perhaps, that it's a red herring. You might decide that later on. Is this the direction I'm going? No. Okay, well then that's a red herring and I'm gonna go this way. So a lot of times I let my scenes dictate that, because then of course you need scenes where the goal of it is character development as opposed to furthering the mystery. You've got those sprinkled in where you're not necessarily gonna plant a clue, but you need to talk about Hank's, marriage and how rough on it is, with his job. So that kind of dictates where the clues go. So did you have a?
I think you answered it. I was going to ask you, if you get, nearly done with your book or even done with your book and you go back and, oh my gosh, I absolutely hate what I wrote. How hard is it then to go back and do you ever have to go back and make large changes that really put you under that pressure for the word count? You write it right the first time.
Well, so I write very slowly. And so that I think lends it like I go so slowly that it's mostly done. Well, I guess that she asked if I edit it as I go, and I guess the answer to that would be yes, in that I'm not going to leave a scene until I'm satisfied with it. So in that respect, yes, I edit as I go because I'm constitutionally unable of walking away without being happy with it, which lends to the slowness that I have. But and there certainly have been situations where it's like, okay, that character disappeared. Clearly he was not important. I haven't revisited him in 30,000 words, so I need to go back and excise that and that kind of thing. So that that certainly does happen. Yeah.
You talked earlier about 4 things: point of view, word count, dates and times. What was the 4th one?
Oh, just a couple word synopsis of the scene.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just enough that you know what you're talking about as you're looking at your list. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and they kind of go together. I know there's the dreaded info dump. And this happens in books of every sort, not just mysteries. They can be a real danger in mystery because you are trying to impart very particular pieces of information, right, clues and all of that. But you need to do it in a way that is not a lecture. That's not a paragraph with 20 facts followed by all the Google research you did on something super interesting. All of that is necessary. You just need to spread it out. And the luxury with a mystery is that you have complete license to do that.
I'm sorry, what are you talking about? I missed it.
Oh,
Facts, data?
the info dump.
Info dump.
Yes. That you are putting everything on the page at once. And with a mystery especially, the reader expects to be strung along. So please do that for them. And this also applies, to anything. If you've done your Google research and you've talked to your people and you've got all the facts that you need, sprinkle them. Not everything needs to be in the first chapter. You want people to fall in love with your characters. The rest will follow. Yeah.
I have a question from one of the people, Bonnie.
Oh, excellent. Hi, Bonnie.
She says her book consists of chapters that her critique group has gone over to clean up her writing.
Okay.
And misunderstandable sections. And I'll ask you the question, but can you also remember people?
Oh, okay.
So the question is, do you utilize that level of feedback? Or do you trust your writing to be exactly what you intended?
Oh, that's a very good question. So Bonnie uses a critique group, and they go through, I think, a chapter at a time, if I'm understanding. And she asks if I trust that level of feedback, or whether I trust that it's coming across as I intended. I don't do it chapter by chapter. I wait until the end, and that's what my beta readers are for. So no, I do not trust that it's going to come across as I intend. I don't think anybody should. You definitely want folks to, tell you it's confusing, or you whatever your problems are. The difference is that I do that all at the end instead of as I go along. I have many writer friends who do it your way, Bonnie, and have a critique group that they swear by and love, and who have helped them, immeasurably for years and years. So it's definitely a very good way to do it. Oh, yeah.
Staying with the input.
Yes.
One of my characters is risking his life because of homeless veterans.
Okay.
He's a young guy, so he has to explain to his wife at some point why their house broke down, among other things. And it's not just because of his work per se, but he really cares about the population that the victim he's trying to help is part of.
Okay.
Homeless veterans. And I tried to get it down to like 3 paragraphs, but he's really emoting to his wife. I want you to understand, Anne, this is why I'm not upset. Well, I'm upset, but this is why our house burned down, because nobody cares about these people. And he explains his life story as a former veteran, yada, 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 and how he has sex with his homeless people. I don't see a way to spread that out as much as sort of saying, okay, dear, here's why we're doing it.
Okay, so I'm gonna, the question is, one of his main characters, I'm assuming, is trying to help a population of homeless veterans, and it's very, very important to him. It's put him in danger and ends up resulting in his house burning down, which then he has to explain to his wife. It's a conversation I would want to overhear personally. See what happens after that. And so he's asking, how could he spread that out, because he is in the middle of a conversation, and so he has to explain why this is, or his character has to explain why this is so important to him as a cause, and all of that. Hang on just a second. So that is a very good point, and my first thing is, this is a conversation, which is great because you can put a lot in dialogue. What you don't want to do is put in things the wife should already know. Like, she knows where he served. Don't say that, right?
This starts with, I never told you.
Oh, okay.
She's a new wife.
Oh, okay, so she's a new wife and he hasn't told her this. So there you go. So that's good, because that's one problem that I see a lot, is dialogue where you're like, this guy should already know this. You're basically telling him it's raining outside and he just came indoors. Because you need the reader to know. It's like, no, you need to figure out a different way to do that. So it sounds like you don't have many of those problems, because you have a realistic way of explaining why she didn't know. She's a new wife. It's not like they've been married 50 years and she should have known all this. So you've alleviated any problems there. I would, and I actually prepared, I found a paragraph and I wanted to read it because you can get away with a lot with dialogue as long as it sounds like dialogue and not an info dump. So I want to read you something real quick. Is this about the info dump, Ken? Did you have a?
I was wondering, in the written storyline,
Uh-huh.
is there a way of inserting a flashback like you have in a movie?
Oh, okay.
Or a dream or a flashback to color what your current perception is that you're trying to explain to this person who may not know what you've been through. It's almost like you've been through a horrific thing with PSDD or something that haunts you.
So Ken is asking about the use of flashbacks as a technique of helping explain like somebody's backstory and that kind of thing. And yes, when they're used well, flashbacks are great. They need to be folded in very carefully. And this is a good thing for a critique group to take a look at, like, you know, make sure that nobody's confused on that this is in the past and, you know, what's going on. So definitely have somebody take a look at a flashback section to make sure that they're understanding what's going on. But yes, you know, if it's a battle in Afghanistan, it would be more exciting for the reader to experience the flashback and the battle than to experience sitting on the couch with the angry wife and talking about it, right? So the flashback might be a very good way to do that. And then the scene where the conversation with the wife happens doesn't have to reiterate that. Then you're just saying, I need to tell you something. And he told her about the battle at X town, you know, and then you can get into the character. He can weep, he can get angry, he can start to shake. She can have a reaction because you've already imparted the battle and what he's gone through. And now you can focus on the after effects. And you're not, it's not an info dump. If, say, you don't want to go that way, structurally, that is not going to work. And that's a perfectly valid position to take, that no, I'm not going to do any flashbacks. I don't think that will work for my manuscript. Let's go back to the angry wife conversation. You need to make sure that it sounds like a hurt and wounded man is talking. So I want to read you this, and it's not exactly, you know, a character in that position, but I found this recently in a book. And so it's real quick, I'm going to read it. It's dialogue. And a burglary has just happened. As I said, we returned home from our trip and I briefly stopped in the office downstairs while Alan went ahead with our luggage, Tim said, glancing at the CSU van. A moment later, I heard shouts and commotion from the apartment and ran upstairs. When I made it to our door, a man in a hoodie and a cap charged me and pushed me out of the way. I fell down a few steps, and by the time I recovered, he'd bolted. Okay. That gives you all the information, right? You know, there was a burglar, he was kind of disguised, there might be injuries. But did that sound like a man who was shaken up, standing outside his burglarized apartment, and there are police everywhere and they're chasing this guy. So how about this? I told you, man, we just got home from the airport. I went into the store to check on things, and Alan went on up to the apartment. All of a sudden, he started screaming. I was so terrified. Out of nowhere, he just starts screaming, Then what did you do, sir? What do you think I did? I ran to him. When I got to our door, some strange guy comes rushing out and pushes right by me. I fell down a few of the steps. I'm lucky I didn't break my neck. The officer gave Tim a moment to compose himself. Can you tell me what he looked like? No, Tim paused to think. Not really, because he had on a hoodie and a cap, so I didn't get a good look at his face. And by the time I picked myself up, he was gone. So it's all the same information, but you actually get a scene out of it. And the guy is talking to the cop, right? So you've got all your information. You've done it with dialogue, which tends to be more interesting anyway. And somebody's talking, the character's talking. He's not reciting, he's not reading a police report, that kind of thing. And one of the best ways to evaluate that is to read it out loud. To literally sit there, maybe wait till the kids are gone, and read that dialogue out loud. And you will start to catch, oh, that sounded stilted. Or, oh, no normal human would say that. They'd say, give me a light. They wouldn't say. So just to pick up on the rhythm of how people speak, because everybody knows it, you do it all day. But writing it and reading it sometimes doesn't get you to it. And you need to say it. So I really recommend that for evaluating your dialogue and teasing out more of the natural way people talk. And then you can fold in all kinds of facts. And maybe switch a fact over to a different character because it's more of a dialogue than one person going on and on. But if they do, read the whole thing out loud and see how it sounds.
How are we doing on time, Claire? It's 10:50.
Oh, okay. Did Adele? Oh, well, I think, did Adele have a question? Were you raising your hand, Adele? Oh.
Well, while that's going on, can we ask
Yes.
some other questions, or did you have more you wanted to present?
No, keep the questions coming. Linda?
Yeah.
And I don't,
What is the role of setting, the setting, the description of the setting? I mean, you haven't really mentioned that. What is the role of the setting, the scene?
I think that really varies. For you, it would probably be very important because you're writing fairy tales and the setting is very, very key. For his angry wife conversation, the setting might not really matter. It could be a coffee shop, it could be the couch at home.
The home is gone.
Oh, the home is gone. Good point. Yes, we knew the home was gone. I'm sorry. The hotel bed. Yes, but the point of that scene is the conversation. So, he might devote 2 sentences to describing the setting, whereas you might need, an entire page. It's a fairy tale, you're world building, and it's much more of an important element. Yes,
So,
Larry.
I've got 3 questions.
Okay.
It should be pretty quick. First is, where are you based and who are you a journalist for?
Well, I'm here in the Sacramento area. The last place I worked for was in the Bay Area, for Night Raider newspapers, back when they existed.
So this next question is 3-act structure. Was that serendipitous? Did it come from research? Where did you come up with that? Why 3, not 4, not 2, etc.?
Well, because 3 is, this is the lamest answer ever, because 3 is what it is. You know, that's what Shakespeare's plays are. That's what, it just, you know, and sure, there are definitely people out there, authors out there who are literal geniuses who can do other things, who can somehow figure out how to pull off different ways. They're very few and far between. They you know, are so I'm not saying it can't be done, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be done.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to justify.
Oh, okay.
I was just curious where it came from, because for me, a lot of what I write ends up being this mass conglomeration of sets of 3. So it was just a curiosity.
Oh, okay.
And all of these are just curiosity questions. Is you're writing your career now, and for example, is this what you depend on for a living?
Sadly, no. He asked if this is what I depend on for a living, and the answer is no. I do have a day job. I am a case manager for a medical legal consulting firm now. And this is, you know, I do this a couple days a week, on the side, I guess, because yeah, it is very difficult to actually make a living at it.
You appear to be very successful, and again, as I said at the beginning, thank you for coming. I got a lot of really valuable insights.
Oh, great. And I'm going to stick around afterward. I want to make sure, and since I am, I want to get here to my folks on Zoom and make sure that I answered any other questions people might have.
Let me unmute Adele.
Oh, okay.
Ask her to unmute herself. You can ask her.
Hi, Adele. Oh, hi, Adele.
Hello, yes.
I want to make sure your question gets answered.
Oh, well, I'm taking notes like crazy, and I'm listening to all you things you say. Wonderful. You write slowly to be happy with what you're doing, etc. Maintain suspense, interesting info on clues that I love. Get people to love your characters, and it will go from there. Wow. What can I say? Just a matter of listening and enjoying what you're saying. Again, what can I say?
Thank you.
What I could say fast is I have 2 daughters who are Cancerians, cancer signs, and I'm looking at their personalities and comparing them with yours. And I'm an Aries. I don't know how we mix together, but my husband said, "Would you like another baby?" I said, "Oh, yes." And he instantly produced one. They were both born on July 21st, 4 years apart. Anyway, I write the stories. I love short stories and I love mysteries. And thank you so much for what you're giving us today. God bless and happy holidays.
Oh, thank you. I've had a wonderful time. And, please, if anybody thinks of anything else, pop it in the chat.
Did you have one last question?
Oh,
one last question. I'll ask the bigger one later. The Larry question is how much are the books?
Oh, how much? 15.
Well, I just want to thank Claire Booth so much for coming out. I think we all got a lot out of that. It was fantastic. I'm going to end the recording now, but Claire, there are more questions in the room.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everybody, so much for logging on and sticking around. I had a wonderful, wonderful time. Thank you so much.